Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. So continuing with the previous tutorials that we have had. So in this one, we are going to start looking at the practical part of it, and we shall start by looking at the databases, whereby in mySQL databases are referred to as schemas. Okay, the word is supposed to be schemata for many databases or schema for a single database. But before you can go into through the slide, there's something I forgot to mention in the first tutorial that I made about the contents that we shall be having. So for now, I've been presenting using slides, okay, PowerPoint slides, but these slides are just a summary of this database guide book that was written by Mr. Shafik some time back. So it is just, the slides are just a summarized content or resource from this book. So we have two resources. You have the slides and you also have this book. So for a detailed explanation of these things, you are going to find them in this book, and I encourage you to refer to it. Okay, I encourage you to refer to it for more explanation of what we are going to be doing. So you can see most of the things that I've been explaining are all in here, and especially where we are heading, I will not be following much of the book, but you will be referring to it for revision purposes and more explanation that you may need to understand the things better. So I'm going to share it with you alongside the slides and the video tutorials. Then after mentioning that, then the other thing is now to look at the software tool that we're going to be using to create or to write our queries. And I told you last time you install the mySQL server, okay, and mySQL GUI tools. So the mySQL server is the one that installs the mySQL server onto our machine. But that server, most of the times it just comes with a command line client that is use the CMD to interact with the server. So however, this GUI tool, it helps us to have a graphical user interface that we can use to interact with the server, and that's what we're going to be using. So from the start, if you have installed, you just have to look for mySQL query browser. We are going to be using mySQL query browser. And for those who might have installed, I think somewhere it asked you for the password. If you haven't installed, then make sure that you set a root password. This is the default user for the server, which is root, and the server host, that is the IP, the server name is called localhost because it is on our machine and running on that port, so you don't need to change anything here. And then as you install, somewhere it asks you for the password, so you have to be certain with what you put. I advise that you just keep the password simple because it is not like a database having confidential information and what, so just keep it simple. Actually, on my machine, I just use 1234 for my database, and you think that, okay, I have some more critical things than new people. So don't write a lengthy password that you may forget. Okay, so just keep it simple. Most of the time, it is either 1234. You just maintain username root, password root. Okay, then we can choose a default schema in case maybe you're working with a particular schema with this user, so you can set it. But now we are not doing that, so you can just ignore that. Then when you click OK. So for you, when you're logging in for the first time after installation, there is a message box that will come up before this interface. So go ahead and ignore it. Actually, there is a checkbox. Do not ask again, something of that sort. And then you click on ignore. Then it will let you to this interface. So now this is the interface that we are going to be using for our database programming. Up here is where is our text editor. This is where we write our codes. Okay, this is where we write our codes. And as you can see, we have the execute button. Yours may not be exactly here, but somewhere up here you may have the execute button, so you just have to look for it. So when you write a statement, okay, and you want to see its results, then we we execute it. Okay, we click on execute, and when you execute, the results come down here under the results set. So this is where we see the result. In case the query you have executed returns some results or result, because some queries, not all queries necessarily return results. Some queries don't return any result, but it has successfully been executed. But if one returns a result, then the result will be displayed here. And in case there is an error in the statement that you're trying to execute, then that error will be displayed. Something will pop up here to show you the kind of error that you have in your statement. And then on the right, on the far right, we have a list of all the databases in your server. So I have a server, but in my server on my machine, all these are the databases that are on it. Okay, so for you, because it is a new server, you have just a few of them, so you don't have to mind about, but just know, okay, the servers are here. So in case you add more servers and more servers, you can just access them through here. You just scroll through the list and find whatever server that you want, and you can activate it. As we shall see how to work with a particular database from all these list of databases. So before I can finish up with this, you can see that I told you this is the text editor, but you can see it is small. Okay, so you can make it bigger. You can make it bigger by coming here to view. Okay, and we say maximize query editor. So you want to make it a little bit bigger so that you have enough working space with our editor. So you just check this. Right now it is not checked, but then you can go ahead and check it. So when you check it, now we have at least a bigger working area, and our result set is just down here. Although the name is there, but the results will be listed down here. So we can even go ahead and maybe make it bigger compared in case you are writing so many things and want to see all of them, so you can just resize so that you do whatever you want with it. And we shall look at these other things one by one. Okay, so let us go then into the slide, because this is the only tool that we need. Okay, for now. Actually, let me first say, because now after maximizing the query editor, and my execute button now is here, and I have some other buttons here. There may not be much of the need for now, but in case there is need, we shall look at them. But mostly the execute button that will execute our queries. So let us go into the slide. As I told you, that databases in mySQL referred to as schema. It is supposed to be schemata. Just here, so you see that schemata, meaning that a list of databases. So they are named as schema. And if I'm to create, I have, okay, it will not be a schema. Okay, so introduction, you're saying that before we can create tables and other objects, we need to have a schema. We need to have a database first. So you need to first create a database before you can create any object like a table or function or a view, procedure, whatever. So schema is referred to as a database, and this is the syntax that we use. We have two statements here. One creates the database and the other one activates it. So to create and activate a database, we use the following syntax. So create and database, these are keywords in the SQL language. Okay, these are keywords in the SQL language that we have to use or to write every time we think of creating a database. And then after that, we follow it with a particular database name that you are creating. Maybe you're creating the ERP database. So you just say create database ERP. Let me go ahead and do that here. So let me first make the text quite bigger so that you people can be able to see exactly what I'm typing. I think it is okay. General options. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to make it quite bigger a little bit. Okay. So we said. So as I told you that I'm going to be using capital letters for my keywords, but you can as well write the create keyword using small case letters or a mixture, and then database. So all keywords in SQL, in mySQL, are colored with this dark blue. Okay, then we follow it with the name of the database. I said we want to name our database as ERP, so I can just call it ERP. So you can see that, okay, now this is not a keyword, so I'm typing it with small case letters, and it has not changed the color. So unfortunately, if I'm to say, unlike in Python, here you have to go back to our semicolon. It is a must because it is an old-fashioned language. So it was created to use the semicolon to indicate that this is the end of the statement. Okay, so if you forget it, and most especially if you have other statements below it, it is likely that you get an error. So to avoid that, we terminate using the semicolon each statement that we write. So if you look at my list of databases here, I don't have anything like ERP. They are arranged in alphabetical order. Okay, so after D, I don't see any ERP. So I'm going to execute this command. Okay, so if no problem, so this is one of the queries that don't return any results. So I don't see anything here, but below here, I see some status message. So it says one row affected by the last command, no results yet returned. So this indicates that my query is fine. I didn't get any error. It has executed successfully. Again, here, I can't see it again still, but if I try to refresh, then I'll be able to see my ERP. I've just refreshed so that it refreshes the list. So I have my ERP. Then the next statement, the use, it helps us to activate the database. Why do we need to activate? Because you have so many databases. Okay, so you have to point out one database that you're going to be working on at that particular time. You can't work with multiple databases at the same time. So you just have to choose one, say that whatever statements that you're going to create are affecting that particular database. Say that they don't affect all other databases that are even of not interest. So you have to activate the database that you want to work with at that time. So that's why we need to activate. So we use the use keyword and the name of the database, meaning that ERP. So if I write here something like ERS, which database doesn't exist, and I try to execute, you see it is giving me an error. Okay, default schema cannot be changed to something like that. Okay, so I have to write the right statement and take note here with the changes that will take place on this ERP, and also up here there's nothing, but after executing this statement you'll see something being added here. So I'm going to execute. So nothing again that I can see, but it will add the name of the database on my connection here, and also ERP is going to be bolded from the rest of other databases, meaning that whatever I'm going to write down here next is going to be affecting this only ERP database, not any of these others. So that is how we deal with databases. You want to create a database, you use the create database statement, and then we want to activate, then we again use that use keyword of the SQL language. And let me see what next with the slide, although I don't want to always be driven by the slide. I don't like that. Okay, so here we have an example. We want to create a restaurant database and then to activate it, and then like that. So before I can proceed further to this, we shall look at that in the next tutorial. I just want to add more something else to this. For example, now maybe we no longer need this database. Okay, no longer. Okay, let us start with maybe renaming, although I'm not certain whether. So as I told you, part of the data definition, it was the create and rename and alter. So in case you want to rename the database, okay, I'm not certain of this one, but let me try it out. Rename database. Okay, I'm not certain about this. Let me not give it to you because you have to rename and then the existing whatever. Let me just So in case you want to drop this database, we no longer need it. We don't want, maybe we are just testing and we are done with it, or it is no longer needed. So this is when we use the drop ERP. Okay, so it's okay. I can use the keyword small case letters. So if I terminate, okay, it is giving me an error. You have an error. Check the syntax to use. Okay, I forgot something here. Drop database. You have to specify what are you dropping, because you may be dropping a table, you may be dropping a function, you may be dropping something else. So you have to specify I'm dropping a database, and then it has successfully executed. And if I refresh again here, then my database has disappeared. Okay, my database has disappeared. And then the other thing that I may mention here is avoid executing these statements more than once. Once you execute it once and it has successfully executed, don't execute it again, especially the create statements and the drop statements. For the use, because every time you want to activate a database, you have to use this keyword. But for these ones, I advise that you don't execute them more than once, and other queries that we are going to look at. So I'm going to execute these statements since I don't have my database, and I'm going to execute, say that I get my database back. Okay, so I have it, and then I will activate it. Okay, it is already activated somehow. I think it is remembering the previous code. I don't know. But now those are the three statements that we may need for the database: creating it, activating it, and dropping it. I'll check out with the rename so that I'll be certain with what we are going to be doing. So for now, that's it for the database in this tutorial. Then in the next tutorial, we shall be looking at the tables. How do you create tables within the database, which is the main component that you're going to spend much time on. So for now, Assalamu alaikum.